Namaste, good morning, and good evening to people from all over the world who have joined us in this month-long celebration of the life and works of Jagat Guru Adi Shankaracharya. This is the Global Festival of Oneness that we have started on Adi Shankara Jayanti last month, and we have had some phenomenal conversations. And every day we have two sessions, one at 6 o'clock in the morning India Standard Time and at 6:30 p.m. India Standard Time. And you can find more details at Advaita Academy website or on our Facebook page. And today, I'm really honored to introduce to you a wonderful human being, a truly blessed soul, Babaji Bob Kindler. By the way, my name is Ravi Shankar Gundlapalli. I live in Silicon Valley. I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm on the organizing team for this Global Festival of Oneness. Babaji Bob Kindler, in fact, he stole my heart when I heard him sing Jai Ho Vivekananda. It was just wonderful. And so he's the spiritual director of the Sharada Ramakrishna Vivekananda Association. He was initiated into the Ramakrishna lineage by revered Swami Aseshanandaji, a direct disciple of Sri Sharada Devi, the wife and spiritual consort of none other than Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. Babaji is also the editor of Nectar of Non-Dual Truth, a journal of universal religious and philosophical teachings, and the author of many books on India's eternal wisdom, including the forthcoming Footfalls of the Indian Rishis and Charting the Scriptures of Mother India that are to come out this summer. I just love the title, Babaji, of the Footfalls of the Indian Rishis. I'm looking forward to that. As an exponent of blending Jnana Yoga with the path of sound called Shabda Brahman, Babaji is also an accomplished musician, multi-instrumentalist, and recording artist in both Western classical and Eastern raga-based music. He has composed and produced over 25 albums in these musical styles. As a singer myself, I just loved his albums. They are available on YouTube, on his own YouTube channel, and he plays instruments, guitar, cello, and I just learned out that there is a new instrument called auto harp, which looked like santur to me, but it's really, really fantastic. Just listening to him, very blissful. And what I like about your work is the world needs not drama, but dharma. I just love that tagline. So with that, Babaji, thank you so much for taking your highly precious, valuable time to share your insights with us today. Thank you so much. Please continue.
Om Shritehe Shatagunam Vidyan Mananam Mananadapi Nedidyasam Lakshagunam Anantam Nirvikalpakam Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. The great Adi Shankaracharya has written in the Vivekananda, it is good to hear about Brahman. It is better to take teachings on Brahman. Better still to meditate directly upon Brahman. And best of all, though, is that meditation in which all doubt about the nature of divine reality dies away forever. So with that sloka from the Vivekananda, I'm going to speak on the title that Indic Academy asked me to select. That's basically those three profound words, which I consider actually even bijams of Sadhana, Moksha, and Jivanmukti. It is spiritual practice done according to the directions of an illumined preceptor. Very important, of course, in Indian Dharma. And then the moksha, which Shankara himself says is a state always at hand. It's not something to be attained, or, of course, it would seem to be a dichotomy then with the word sadhana, which is what you're trying to do to attain moksha. So maybe I'll speak a little bit about that apparent dichotomy. And then Jivanmukti, which my own teacher, Swami Sheshanandaji Maharaj, peace and bliss be upon him, was always mentioning whenever he cited Shankara and the Advaita Vedanta teachings, and also paying his obeisances to Gaudapada, which was, I think, Shankara's teacher's teacher. So, in short, then, sadhana, moksha, and Jivanmukti, that's a mouthful, and of course, in 30 or 35 minutes, not going to even be able to do it near the justice it deserves. But I will give it my best try and hopefully be able to shed some light on this great soul's life. We know he only lived 32 years. It reminds us very much of my greatest influence in the Vedanta. By the way, here in America, where I live, I'm actually in the Hawaiian Islands, but basically that's a part of America, and I have a couple ashrams here, as you just heard. But Swami Vivekananda came to America in 1893 and brought the Vedanta and mentions of Vaitland Yoga, and he was a great influence to me when I found out about him. So he also only lived to 38, 39 years of age or so. So I can't help but draw the parallels between Shankara 1,300 years ago and Swamiji some 150 years ago, and how Swamiji brought this great Advaita Vedanta to the West, to America and to England particularly. And since then, it's been influencing people since 1893. And we hope that it's gaining ground, as I was just talking about with Ravi before I was introduced, that we need more Dharma and less drama, is one of our quips that we do here in SRV associations. So with that kind of as an introduction, and also like to say that I'm very grateful to be able to appear on Advaita Academy's program here, the great celebration of Adi Shankaracharya, that's going to go on for 30 days, the Festival of Oneness, I think it's being called. You might want to say the Festival of Not Two-ness if you're thinking of it from the standpoint of Zen Buddhism, which is another grand influence from India over some 52 generations anyway. So we're very pleased to have representation here with this program on the Shankara. I feel grateful to be appearing amongst so many of the scholars and professors and swamis and swaminis that I've been watching over the last couple of days make their presentation on Shankara. What can be said in 40 minutes about him? What can even be said in 1,300 years since the great soul lived? But more to the point of the substance of my talk about sadhana, moksha, and Jivanmukti, it seems that words are another one of those strange dichotomies. We're supposed to be in silence, and then so if you have the temerity to break the silence of Brahman and you come forth to speak about topics, then you better know the meaning of words. And I've found in the West basically that there's a lot of aparavidya and a lot less paravidya here to grab onto with the mind to actually affect some kind of a successful sadhana with. Or as we were saying recently, we know that COVID is here, but it'd be very important to concentrate on paravid and aparavid, and that would stand you in good stead as far as resisting all diseases, which Lord Vasishta has said come from the mind anyway. So if we make the mind pure, which is one of the 8 steps to enlightenment that Shankaracharya spoke about in the first 50 slokas actually of the Vivekachudamani, he speaks in terms of a human birth, strength of body, purity of mind, and the will to live a spiritual life. Those are the first 4 of the 8 strata of attainment of moksha, according to this great soul in that great revealed scripture. That's 4 steps that if you manage to climb that particular ladder towards enlightenment or moksha, a state already at hand, then you've made your way pretty much past a lot of the barriers and impediments that are cited in the darshanas of India, in yoga and with the kleshas, and in Buddhism with the kileshas, and Tantra with the various impediments. So we know that it all depends on words, and yet the first doorway to yoga is, by Shankara, is said to be remain in silence. So if you remain in silence, then how are you going to come out and speak? See, so that was my quandary today. Basically, I went to sleep last night and I was in silence. And I got up this morning before sunup. I meditated. I was in silence. I had prasad breakfast in silence. And then Advaita Academy said, come and give a talk this afternoon. So I have to break that silence. So I'm thinking that if you're going to break the silence of Brahman, then you probably are going to need to know the deep, profound meaning of words. The Tantras state, mantra nam jiva bhuta tulya shmita shakti rupaya tatahina vararohe nishvalaha sharda pravat. That means basically that the seers and rishis of ancient India, they know and remember the divine Shakti, who is the power in all the slokas and all the sutras of the revealed scriptures. And she infuses all the tattvas, like eating, drinking, and tasting, touching, smelling, seeing, hearing, earth, air, fire, water, and ether, all those insentient tattvas, which Advaita Vedanta speaks about as the non-self. She infuses them all with her being. Without her in them, all of these things would be like clouds without rain, the chant states. And she's also this power in all the mantras and all the different kinds of words and the secret of all the mantras. And she's the essence of all non-duality. So this is what we would state, and definitely a tantric sloka, but we have to remember that Shankaracharya and his guru's guru were tantricists as well. They were worshippers of Shiva. They wrote poems and stotras to Divine Mother. So you can be sure that they were well aware of the presence of Shakti in everything and in every word, which, by the way, I think in the West is a parvid. The way we learn words and everything is just basically focused on lower knowledge for certain earthly purposes. And the parvid goes unknown by us, the Dharma not having been taught to us in the West. I know from my own case it was very difficult to find a teacher in the West. And it was why Swami Vivekananda came, and then on his heels other great teachers like my guru came to the West and let us know about the Dharma. And hopefully that would save us from the drama, as we're saying. So this power in words is evident to the person who remains in silence. Sri Ramakrishna had a story about that, is that if you have a bucket of milk and you want butter, then you have to take that and churn it vigorously. And then you put it aside in a quiet place for a long time. And then the curd floats to the surface of the bucket of milk, and then you can gather it together into butter. So he's talking about the same thing Shankara is speaking of. Basically, when you have to remain in silence first, that's the first doorway to yoga. This is according to the Bhashya of Shankara on Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. So you have to remain in silence for a while, and then that sets you up for some venture into the world of words, into the world of the Bhakti, the goddess of the word who's there and the power in all words. And with that being the case, then the churning of the bucket is, of course, the sadhana you need to do in order to help those curds of wisdom come to the surface of life, the surface of the mind, because mind is, of course, the hub of everything. And everything means things that are positive, things that are negative, and things that are mixed. Shuddha, 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 Ashuddha, as the teaching goes in Tantra. So if that's going to come to the mind, then this churning of sadhana has to happen. And then after the sadhana phase is over, you put this bucket of churned milk off in the corner and you don't touch it. That's called the silence of meditation. And pretty soon, in that emptiness, as the Buddhists would call it, shunyata, or in the presence of nothingness, Advaita, non-duality, the absence of things, the absence of thoughts, then comes this rising of the curds of wisdom, insight of the Dharma and into the Dharma. So that's a beautiful saying in Sri Ramakrishna speak. And here in the West, we have things like the glass is half full, glass is half empty, and they're speaking in terms of how a pessimist would see half a glass of water and how an optimist would see a half glass of water. So that just leaves you with that duality. But knowing that there's a deeper intelligence in everything, like in particles, and you would probably go looking into the particles of words called letters, and then into the particles of the letters, and there you would find this jnana matra, this particle of wisdom. If you ventured outward in a different way, you'd be looking into the particles of objects called atoms and molecules and neutrons and quarks and subatomic particles, and you'd find there's a great power of destruction in those things, and you may be tempted. So it's like an occult power, as India would have called it back in the ancient times. So instead of seeking those occult powers, you seek the power of Shakti, the Divine Mother, and everything. And those are the power in words to convince, to impress upon people the import of speaking. So this is what I'm saying about what we call Advaita Vedanta Sadhana. It's kind of a contradiction in terms, because you wouldn't think that if you were a realizer of Advaita that you would need a sadhana. But Shankara himself said every day he kept a mirror of the mind wiped clean with sadhana. And they asked him, why would you do that if you're already realized, Advaitically realized? And he said, because I want to keep the vision of Brahman in my mind as clear as I possibly can, as the mind will accumulate dust, cosmic dust, as it were, cosmological dust. And in that case, then, you're also going to want to be an example for others, he said. You want to influence your children, you want to influence your brothers and sisters, your society, even your mother and father. In my case, I went away and found my teacher when I was 19, came back to my mother and gave her what I found out about the Dharma. And she didn't know anything about it. And she ended up passing from her body with a favorite Mahavakya in mind and the mantra to Sri Ramakrishna that I gave her to practice. So you become an example for other beings when you practice a sadhana, plus you keep the mind, which is impure by nature, wiped clean with daily sadhana. And that would, of course, get rid of all that drama and put Dharma in its place, as we were saying. And that's a very important kind of sadhana. And if you manage to succeed in that, then you would be a candidate for Jivanmukti. That is, you may become a Jivanmukti, a living liberated soul. And you would attain that station of moksha, although, of course, it was already a state that's always at hand. That's one of the best definitions of the word moksha that I've ever heard in the Indian traditions, was Shankara's statement that it's a state always at hand. It's the nature of Atman, and thou art that, as the commentaries, as the Mahavakyas and the commentaries would take great lengths to try and help you understand. So that's how you would look at these three words of Sadhana, Moksha, and Jivanmukti, and as bijams, power words in Sanskrit. And there are not very many special words in the English language that speak of spirituality. In fact, we're now trying to find words in the English language that will help describe powerful words in the Sanskrit from the English. And that's an ongoing work that we're involved in for the good of humanity, so that Dharma can be realized here in the West. In India, you were raised with it, hopefully. And hopefully it hasn't changed that much. It's that you have these great rishis that were, from time out of mind, bringing back these great systems, yoga and Vedanta, all the darshanas, both orthodox and unorthodox, astika and nastika. And so you had a lot to choose from when you were growing up, but we didn't really have anything but the Aparavidya here, and it wasn't classed against some other kind of wisdom. Here you wouldn't call what you make a living with lower knowledge. It's just knowledge, and that's all there is. And pretty much philosophy and religion also falls along that line in the West. It's just average knowledge, and you wouldn't have a second category to compare it with or contrast it to. So it's very fortunate then when you come to understand Indian Dharma and you find out that there is a higher class of wisdom, Paravid, and with words in it like Moksha and Sadhana and Jivanmukti. Like I said, my teacher was always talking about Shankara and Jivanmukti, and whenever he did, he would look out at his congregation of Westerners mostly that were there at his ashram in his Vedanta center in Portland, Oregon, where I was growing up. And he would look at us and say the word Jivanmukti, and then kind of a silence, and he says, when are you going to produce one? He would say, it's time for the West to produce a Jivanmukti. Which among you can be a candidate, can become a Jivanmukta? So all of those things were based upon some kind of qualification that we needed to get. As I started off chanting, Shuddhe Shakta Gunam Vidyam Mananam Mananadapi. You need to hear it first from an illumined source, from a Dharma teacher, or from an acharya, or from a yogi, or from a rishi, or from a sannyasin. And once you heard it, then you need to take it somewhere, do that churning again on your own. And that's mananam. Nididhyasam comes after that. So the manana phase is up to you to go into your own mind, sit in silence again, because then you've heard it, and that's the words, and then you join the words to your mind. Now, eventually you're going to join the mind to the intellect, and the intellect to the ego, the ahamkara, and then you're going to join that to the witness. And most of the people in the West, you see, have no idea of the witness. Sakshi is the word in Sanskrit. In fact, I think probably most of them aren't really aware of the ego, of ahamkara, as being something that can be specified. You can bring it out and kind of look at it like, oh, this is me. And a lot of people never get around to that kind of inner inspection, what in Zen they call the Eskimo who has to inspect snow conditions all the time because his life depends on it. So in your mind, if you're doing a sadhana, a spiritual practice, and you want to attain moksha, then you're going to have to be inspecting your mind, all the gunas. So that's why Shankara says, Vacham Nyacham Nyachatmani Tam Nyacha Buddhau Diyam Yacha Cha Buddhi Sakshini. So he's saying that you have to take all these words that you've heard from the Guru, which really come from the word. We know what that is, of course, A-U-M. Om. And you have to blend them in the mind or join them to the mind. And then once you join those words to the mind, then you would join both of those to the intellect, buddhi sakshan. And then once you have done that, you join all three of those, word, mind, and intellect, to the ego. By that time, you have what Sri Ramakrishna says, a ripe ego, pakvahankara. And at that point, the witness becomes available to you. You know there's a separate onlooker. And much like the Atman, but not quite yet merged. And so he goes on, tam chapi purnatmani nirvikalpa. You have to then join the witness to the Atman and experience nirvikalpa, samadhi. And the one who does that is the blissful enjoyer of sweet dissolution, he says. Is basically Vilapyashanti Parama Bhajasva. It says that one who does this merging or this joining, or if you wish, this dissolving. Some of the fine words for this process of an Advaita Vedanta sadhana. Then he enjoys eternal peace. Vilapyashanti, and he has ecstatic bliss. It is Parama Bhajasva. So these are some of the great words of the great Adi Shankaracharya in terms of how to merge the external with the internal. That is, he says, Om Drishyam Pratitam Pravilavayam Sam Matram Anandaganam Vibhavayam Samahita Sam Bahir Antaram Va Kalam Nayetaha Sati Karma Bande. And key words there being Bahir Antaram Va. So the external and the internal. You've come to know that there are at least two worlds there, which of course we didn't in America in the early days. Our parents didn't. So you have to study this external, these tattvas, and then merge them with the internal, the inner tattvas. And the witness is doing this all along, although your sadhana is at the head of it. And so then you begin to merge these two, and he concludes then that render them into one indivisible state, because that's what they are. And then meditate upon that state, pass your time contentedly, and be free. So basically that kind of summates sadhana, moksha, and the state that you would end up in called Jivanmukti. I suppose that just as I'm getting warmed up, it's time to stop speaking. So again, my great gratitude is to Advaita Academy and Indic Academy for allowing me to share these few brief words to the great soul, Adi Shankaracharya, who delights us with these powerful words, these bijams, and brings us close to samadhi when we contemplate them in the proper atmosphere. So I will then allow the process to go on and feel very gratified that I've been able to participate. Jai Shri Adi Shankaracharya Ki Jai.
Pranams Babaji. That was a wonderful presentation, which I felt was delivered in silence. It was so blissful. I could hear the words, but they were echoing from a chamber of silence, and very, very inspiring. And I'm just seeing some people are just logging in, and I have a question before others get to come out of the silence that you have taken us. You said something so powerful, and if you can expand on it, you said Jivanmukti is a state always at hand. Now, this is the first time I'm hearing it, so I feel very encouraged. It's not somewhere out there. So maybe can you expand on that phrase, which is so wonderful, that a state always at hand. So in this world of so much drama, how does one access that state if it is always there for you?
What stands veiled, Shankara said, there's of course the anavi, the avarana shakti. The avarana shakti is the veiling power, and the vikshepa shakti is the distorting power. That's like tamas and rajas. He was mating those two up. giving the gunas a further expansion in his particular time. But he also mentioned Prakasha Shakti, which means the revelatory power, and we don't really hear about that too much in the teachings. So that revelatory power, if you propitiate the goddess of the word and ask for understanding, deeper understanding in this silence of your own meditation, and she favors you after a certain time, as of course we saw in the case of Sri Krishna, that Mother Kali favored him highly and spoke from his throat. The Bhakti is sitting in my throat, he said. So got to this place finally in your sadhana and your understanding where you felt like either you had walked into the chamber of moksha or moksha had come and just revealed itself to you. I think most of the realized souls say that it was by grace that it happened. And some of these beings don't even believe in grace when it happens to them. They believe in self-effort, and they believe in other things, but all of a sudden they had this amazing happening occur to them, and they were suddenly aware of this presence. And I think Shankara, in his case, would say that moksha can't be gotten by transformation. It can't be gotten by sadhana or practice. It can't be gotten because of a fall from grace, and it can't be attained in any way. So he's leading us toward this state always at hand. And that, of course, would describe the Atman. And somehow we're going to have to strip away the covering power and the distorting power and get to the revelatory power. I think that's the best kind of sadhana. And you find Shankara speaking about that in his scriptures. He's not just an Advaita Vedantist. He wrote songs to Divine Mother, and he was a Shaivite. So he blended a lot of darshanas in a very masterful way. Commented on yoga, added 6 limbs to the 8-limb system. So if you read him with a deeper understanding of words, then you'll understand more and more over time that it's a state always at hand. You're just stripping off coverings over it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Babaji. In fact, one theme that you have said over and over again throughout this talk is the importance of words. And, they also say, Sravanam, Mananam, and also Nididhyasa. And so being able to contemplate on the words, sometimes you don't have words in English. So, but, constantly being in silence. And just the example you gave about the bucket of milk. And only then does the real truth settle and you become close to it. Now, we live in a world, there are lot of us who are in the, so-called, agruhasthashramam, we have spouses, we have children. So there's a question, Babaji, how and what sadhana do you suggest for people in the so-called gruhasthashramam or samsari or, leading a married life with children? What do you recommend, Babaji?
Well, I do have students who are Americans, and I do have some students in India who write me, and they ask that same question from various cities in India, and they're already doing some sort of a sadhana, and they have some sort of a will to live a spiritual life. So Shankara said, the very first thing that's most important is that you have a human body. And the second thing after that is that you make that body strong. And the third thing is that you get purity of mind. That is, you realize that the mind is not the brain. The brain is part of the body. So you're not working in the brain so much anymore. You've graduated knowing the antakarana, the fourfold mind is there. And you begin to inspect that inside in silence. And then he says what happens after that is you develop a will to live a spiritual life. So at that point, you've covered 4 steps of an 8-step ladder that he talks on the way to this moksha, which ironically enough is already at hand. So you're stripping off blinders off your eyes as you make this, what I like to call involution. And so people write me from India, and they're Hindus, and it's kind of an interesting mix there that there's an American guru there who has for 50 years been practicing this under the hand of a sannyasin and from India, and is now returning to advise them about what he would do about a sadhana. So, for instance, one person wrote me and said, well, I do a little hatha yoga and some breathing exercise. So I said, well, great, that's a good start. Now let's start you reading the Gita again, and reading the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. I think those two, Gita and Gospel, cover everything that you need to know. And from ancient times to modern times, I think. So now that you've started reading the scriptures, now let's have you increase your breathing exercises, but better than breathing exercises will be a mantra. So if you have a teacher and you've gotten a mantra, the mantra will take care of everything that hatha, asanas, and pranayama will give you, but without the danger. Now that's a quote from Swami Brahmananda Rakal, Sri Ramakrishna's one of his main disciples, said that. Without the danger, the mantra will take care of everything that usually you get through asana and pranayama. So you might not want to give up asana and pranayama once you've already launched into it, but you can add in scriptures, swadhyaya if you want to put it that way, and you can add in mantra practice. And now how about meditation? You see, so now we've come up with 5 things where you had 2. And so that's my short answer, basically, is that's kind of what I try and lead people towards.
Wonderful. So you're given a lot of hope that the fact that you have a human body and that the fact that you are already asking these questions already are the first 2 steps, and you use the word will is also extremely important. Thank you for that. Another question, Pranam Babaji, would you say that Nirguna Brahman and Satchidananda are one and the same, or is there a difference between these terms, Nirguna Brahman and Satchidananda?
I would say that there's no difference in their essence whatsoever, but each of these great words has a little bit different inference to it. When you say Nirguna, you're talking about Brahman who has gone beyond all qualities, is not Saguna anymore. So you're offsetting the teaching of Nirguna with Saguna. When you say Satchidananda, you don't have any second thing there, really. I think basically there were 3 schools in India. One, they followed Sat, existence, God is, existence is. The second school followed Chit, they were working on their minds and their thoughts. The third school was a bliss school. So somewhere along the way, they probably got together and said, hey, here's a word for Brahman for you, Satchidananda. Doesn't it cover all bases, you see? So, I mean, that's sort of my theory, but, and I don't even know if I read that somewhere, but it sounds very sound to me. But I think there are different words for Brahman and the state. Like you have a sampragyata, seedless samadhi in yoga, but you have nirvikalpa, beyond time, in Vedanta, and you have Satori and Zen, and you have all these different words which are really mean the same thing, like moksha and Advaita Vedanta, but they just have little different inferences. And I think it's a kind of blissful preoccupation, once you know the words, as I was talking about earlier, to place your mind on them and meditate upon them, contemplate them. That's Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, or Shruti, Yukti, and Anubhava.
Wonderful. Thank you, Babaji. One more question. To whom is there the power of wheeling and projection if Brahman is one with no attributes? Brahman, so you're saying Brahman has no attributes, it has no qualities. So if the true power is with the Brahman, why is there such a power which hides its true nature from all of us? What is hiding its true nature?
Well, I think that's why even the great Advaitins like Gaudapada and Shankara and Govindapada, who is the incarnation of the father of yoga, by the way, 500 years after Shankara's guru. So I think that's what beings like this would always defer to the Mahashakti. I think Divine Mother goes missing. She goes missing everywhere, in every religion, and even in Hinduism in India, in Vedanta and yoga, you have a hard time finding words for her. I mean, Father of Yoga's mentioned her once or twice, Chit Shakti. She's the mother of your thoughts. In Vedanta, she's Vakdevi. She's the goddess of the word. And until you uncover her, I mean, because she is really keeping that covering power over the eyes of most people, because they're not qualified yet to come into the company of the holy. I mean, say right here, human birth, you see, is like the first step, isn't it? So you have to have a human form in order to be qualified to understand higher things. I mean, the plants, they don't have consciousness of their own. They have consciousness in them, but it's the consciousness of the Mahat that's in them, not the consciousness of the plant, as Vivekananda would say. So the cosmic mind puts consciousness in everything as a reflector. So that's the principle of Chidabhasa or Vivarta in Vedanta. That power of reflection or hiding power is best gotten rid of by the one who's putting the blindfold over your eyes. You know, just ask Mother to take that away. Just remove the covering. But you have to pray to her, sing to her, meditate upon her. So anyway, what I'm saying here in very short, too long-winded here, is that the power of the Mahashakti to cover things, she'll be the one that takes them away, and she'll also, as I said earlier, give the highest seers their highest revelation.
That's wonderful. Actually, you're saying whoever is hiding, it's also the Shakti to whom you can pray, right? Because it's ultimately the Maya that is covering the truth, and Maya is also a manifestation of the Shakti. So your excellent advice is pray to the Mother, let her remove those sort of blockages to seeing the true Brahman. Babaji, that's been a very inspirational message. Your sweetness of the words, the silence from where your message came, and very simple hope that you have given to everyone who is listening today, and thousands more who will be listening online when we post this video, that this Jivanmukti state is a state at hand, and with the will, by remaining silent and by following scriptures and by having a guru, you can actually attain it right here. So thank you so much. Thank you for all that you're doing for Advaita, and please stay safe. And from all of us at Advaita Academy, deep gratitude to you. Thank you so much.